feeling good physically is sort of the cheapest, easiest way to kind of house some of the bigger goals, which it would be to feel, I don't want to say the word good. How about the idea of like, hopefully I'm progressing, within myself as a person. So whether it's my reactions to things, my ego, being sort of less fear-based, and also to continue to have goals. I think I'm not sort of looking to wind down. I'm trying to stay interested and curious, not thinking I know something or that this is how it is. But then beyond that, it's like each day kind of trying to fight that, because I feel like aging is the kind of the constriction of things versus the continuous expansion.
Gabby Reece, former professional beach volleyball player and Nike's very first female spokeswoman. Women's sports and fitness named Gabby one of the top most influential women in sports. Holy smokes. Gabby is a serial entrepreneur, host of the Gabby Reece Show, founder of Laird Superfoods, which, by the way, Gabby and Laird donated their Laird Superfoods to our yoga retreat in Jackson Hole. Very, very generous, and people just went crazy over it. So I'm sure at the end of our conversations, you guys fill you in on how to get some of that yourselves and share that with your friends and family and coworkers. What else here? XPT, Gabby Apparel, and High X. She has regularly appeared on Good Morning America, The Today Show, Ellen DeGeneres Show, Chelsea Lately, that must be fun on that show, as well as other top-tier entertainment shows. In the spring of 2012, Gabby was invited to Washington, D.C. I've been there a couple of times to speak at the annual TED Med Conference on Innovations in Health and Medicine. Gabby also has an ongoing relationship with the American Heart Association, Teaching Gardens, an initiative benefiting needy schools through the planting of organic gardens, by which she speaks to children. To children about the importance of eating healthy and regular exercise. Gabby's most recent book, My Foot is Too Big for the Glass Slipper, quickly became the #1 New York Times bestseller. A New York Times bestseller. Gabby's challenge to feminist definitions of modern women sparked a huge media interest, resulting in appearances on The Today Show, Rock Center with Brian Williams, Live from the Couch, Dr. Oz, Katie Couric, Chelsea Lately, the Jeff Probst Show, and The Better Show, to name a few. She was also a co-host on The View. I think I saw one or two of those. You're awesome on there. And appeared on Access Hollywood. She's a world-class model. She has graced the covers of, check this out, Sports Illustrated for Women, Travel and Leisure, Golf, Women's Sports and Fitness, Outside, Elle, Shape, Self, Harper's Bazaar, Volleyball, Fitness, Life, Vogue, Experience Life, and People, and has worked with the most elite photographers in the world. A Florida State star turned pro, Gabby trained hard to hone her skills in two-person beach volleyball and competed domestically in the 1999-2000 Olympic 4-on-4 Challenge Series and the 1999-2000 FIVB Beach Volleyball World Tour. So, Gabby, I have one thing to you: get a life. Okay.
That's just simply living a few years. That's not really that many accomplishments.
Well, it's impressive nonetheless. No question about it. Again, this is my kind of elite group, and you guys, you can all kind of unmute yourselves. There's not a ton of us here, but I know the rest of the community will have a chance to be able to see all this stuff too, or see our conversation, because we'll stream it to them. But one of the things that I've been able to do over the course of these 35 years in this industry is try to find ways to disseminate the various ways in which people can live a fuller life, and people can be more fit and eat better food and be able to not only change their aesthetics or change their physique for aesthetic purposes, but to be able to use the human body for all kinds of means. I mean, when Sean and I, we did a 4.5-hour bike tour on the Appian Way, there were a lot of people who maybe were in Italy who weren't able to sign up for that because they just weren't maybe taking care of themselves. And so, I know that, spending that, maybe now you're not all aware, but, when we were up at Gabby and Laird's place, it was one heck of an interesting day. We were in the pool with weights, getting after it, getting way, way, way outside of my comfort zone. Our friend Brian, who's sort of a natural athlete, managed pretty well. But I mean, I struggled a little bit, but that's the part I enjoyed. I learned a lot. And then we got in the hot box and we got in the ice cubes and we went around and around and around. And it was just a thrill to be able to be a neophyte for a day and just experience that and learn so much from both you and Laird. It was just an amazing day. Looking forward to getting back up there again, I think, and getting after it again. We'll have to have you guys over here and get on the ninja course and the pegboards and the ropes and all the other things, all the toys I got flying around here. So the first question that I have for you, and by the way, everybody, I'm going to open up the chat here. You could, if you feel weird about asking the chat, by raising your hand or whatever, and you want to put it over here in the little chat box, you have that option as well. But don't be afraid, because Gabby has accomplished so much, and she's a real aficionado in a lot of areas when it comes to taking care of yourself and aging gracefully. And she's done that really well. I see some funny looks here, but man, I had fun on your podcast. Holy crap, that was a fun day too. We really had a good time. If you haven't heard that one yet, you should probably do that immediately after this. Let me ask this first question. So, for me, when I'm doing all my on-camera stuff for Power Life, I read the copy and, we go over the copy and we have to kind of decide what we want to say and how we want to say it. But it's all about aging all the time. You know what I mean? Because my demographic is, I just turned 65 and, I have fans as young as teenagers. I was at the Coliseum in Italy with Shauna walking around, and two girls who were easily under 20 said, "Oh, look, there's that old guy from the infomercial." So I don't know if they were fans. Maybe their parents were. So I turned to Shauna and go, "I don't think that one counts. I don't think them saying the old man from the infomercial counts." But, what we're trying to do, at least for the people that we're trying to help, is talk about, what are the most graceful ways you can age so that you can be able to take care of yourself and do things physically and enjoy them mentally and emotionally. So I know aging is a very broad topic. It's been a hot topic for a long time, especially for us. Mm-hmm. What is your approach generally? It's a big, broad question, but what's your approach on moving forward on this planet Earth as well as you can?
Yeah, I think it's something that for me personally, like I consider it deeply and then sort of not at all, if that makes sense. And so I feel like if I have a solid kind of strategy around, how am I hoping to feel and perform and all of these things, then, how do I build this realistic strategy given all the variables, whether it's work and meetings, and I still have one kid at home, be in a relationship, travel, whatever, deal with, artificial knee, just things like all the variables. Then it kind of transcends past that physical practice. So I feel like feeling good physically is sort of the cheapest, easiest way to kind of house some of the bigger goals, which it would be, for the spirit to feel, I don't want to say the word good. How about the idea of, like, hopefully I'm progressing, within myself as a person. So whether it's my reactions to things, my ego, being sort of less fear-based and kind of more, I don't want to use the word love-based, but let's say that things are coming from that part of my personality versus, pride or ego or ultimately fear. So I sort of look at it that way. I think a lot of times people think when you have a really intense physical practice that that's what you're really thinking about. And I think for me, maybe because I have been in this space, almost, I went to college to play volleyball in 1987. So I've been moving for a long time, is I know a lot of people who are really fit and really strong, and it's still not really working out. And so it's like, oh, wait a second, there's so much more that's sort of really important. But one of the quickest ways to do this is to feel good. So I've got the strategy. So food and sleep and all of the things that all of you know. And then it's sort of like the personal aspects of it. So do I have meaningful connections and relationships? So in my case, I'm fortunate. I have a partner, but it could be with friends or children or, anything like that. And also to continue to have goals. I think I'm not sort of looking to wind down. I'm trying to stay interested and curious and
Mm,
excited and not fixed. That's something I really fight, is not thinking I know something or that this is how it is. So you want to have a good set of values and things that you know to be true. But then beyond that, it's like each day kind of trying to fight that, because I feel like aging is the kind of the constriction of things versus the continuous expansion.
mhm, mm.
So and then if you just talk about physical, I'm not 20. I have 3 daughters, and some are older than 20, and one is almost 20, and one is younger than that. And so I think as a female, because it is different for us, right? Like if men have earning power as they're getting older, as long as that kind of earning power is there, they sort of still have a value supposedly in our world and culture.
Mm,
And I
yeah.
think for a lot of times for women, it's, are you able to make babies and are you attractive? Right. And rather than sort of succumbing to that, it's like, yeah, I get that biological component, but then also bringing value in other ways makes me feel if it makes me feel less worried about wrinkles, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, sure does. Let me ask you something. I mean, I'm going to veer to the left just slightly. It's funny that you mentioned making decisions based on fear. That was probably when in your 20s and 30s, it was probably more of that than now as you've gotten a little bit wiser and lived a little bit.
I think it's something we always fight. I
Mm,
think it's biological. I think it's also hardwiring from programming, things that occur. So I think it's something that it's a little bit like fitness. It's a little
mm,
bit like your spiritual practice. I don't know that we arrive. I've only met maybe 1 or 2 people that one of them being Byron Katie, that I would believe
mm.
that she is not so fearful.
Nope.
Everyone else I would be like, and I can only speak personally. It's something that it's not that it's choices, but it might be, I have to maybe choose it every day.
Yeah, it's funny you brought up Byron Katie. Oh my God, I remember reading one of her first books. I
Mm,
mean, the vibe I got was, oh my God, I've been doing all this stuff, had all this stress, used to try to live for everybody else, take it, her kids were, and after a while she just said, I'm not as attached to the outcome anymore, man. I'm just gonna live
yeah.
and let live. And yeah, that was a valuable book. Byron Katie. Oh my God,
Yeah. I've
yeah.
gotten to know Katie as a friend, and she's an interesting person to kind of think, how far am I from that? Someone who thinks or reacts like that.
Mm,
And I've seen her kind of quietly and in real life, and I put that in quotes, and it's the same. So I'm like, wow, how do you get
wow.
even just the semblance of that from day to day would be
Wow.
pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I just had a gig up in North Dakota, and it's the first one that I've had a speaking gig since pre-pandemic.
Oh,
Uh, I was telling Sean and my wife when I got back, I said it would be so nice if I wasn't in a panic prior to
oh,
going up there and being in front of a bunch of strangers. And it was a
mm,
very specific Christian group. You know what I mean? I like to use
mm.
profanity as much and as often as possible. And I was told specifically not to. But that's okay. I mean, you don't do certain jokes in front of certain people, and I know that lesson. But once I got in the groove and I got going, and in the end of it, it was the energy in the room was just filled with love and laughter and enthusiasm and acceptance, and it was
Mm,
amazing. And I came home to Sean and I said, wouldn't it have been nice if I could have skipped all the fear and just
yeah.
gone and done what I knew I could do and just had taken the panic out? I mean, here I am still 65 and dealing with that. But I think also too, a lot of it has to do with, the more you do, the better you get. I mean, if that was my 10th one post-pandemic, I probably would have been much more relaxed, who knows, but.
Well, and listen, we don't want to be rejected by the tribe. So again, we've all heard many stories about, I think there's a great percentage of people that are more afraid of public speaking than they are of death.
Yeah.
And um and there's something to be said for putting yourself in things that make you uncomfortable. So it can be a balance,
Mm.
of all that. And so, but I get it. I know.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to say no. I wasn't going to reject the opportunity. I mean, there was some box breathing beforehand on the night before, and a run and a 32 set shoulders and arms routine about 2 hours before I did the gig. I mean, I know what to do. I know I know how to get there. And it's, it's part of life. And there's certain aspects of that I have to accept, I mean, I can't, I am my father's son too, there's some of that.
Mhm.
I also really, really liked what you said, kind of about the transition, but between from where you were and how you're you're not a kid anymore, right? And so you've shifted gears a little bit, but you're still, I mean, I spent a day with you. You know what I mean? You're not afraid to get after it, for sure. You and Laird, it was kind of very impressive to watch the two of you go to work. And again, on a little side note, your teaching style was, was great. I just
Oh,
really enjoyed it. You weren't a
thank you.
drill sergeant. You didn't baby us either. You really know how to, you read the room and you really found the line. It was really impressive what you did. Let me ask my next question. And if anybody else has one, where's my chat now? Where'd you go? Well, thank you, Hannah. I appreciate that. My next question. For women, aging seems to be more difficult due to societal standards. You talked about that a little bit. Can you speak on how you can navigate the aging and the mental attitude toward it?
Well, I mean, listen, if we just talk from a kind of technical component, I think because our hormonal systems are more complex, I believe that in certain ways we're a little more vulnerable to getting our legs taken out, especially as we get older. So you hear women who go through menopause or perimenopause or things like that. So what I would say is, just from a baseline, is invest the time to get your blood work done to check what's going on with your hormones. Because sometimes it's sort of like the lizard brain. Some of the stuff we're feeling, it's not really us. We're out of whack. And I mean, that's true for men and women, but you hear a lot of women sharing that they go through a really hard time as they age, not only for some of the obvious things, but also because the hormones, they change. And so I would really encourage people to invest in that and make sure that, whatever is out there that's available that can support you and bring some buoyancy to kind of your perspective, absolutely take advantage of it. So start there. And then it's kind of the other, I mean, this is the harsher side, which is, time, no one has found the fountain of youth. And I think if we haven't invested in those relationships or interests, our own personal passions, because kids get bigger and they leave and they get their own lives, our partners have their things, that women aren't really taught, as I think as early, certainly, to kind of build their own personal life separate from everyone, but especially work. Don't make work the thing, because that can be tricky for different reasons. So for me, it's like I have my family. Well, first, so I'm taking care of myself, my health. So I have the best shot at feeling good. Then I kind of go, hey, I have all these people that I'm connected to, that I'm here to serve. I'm here to, do the work, but then I have my own things, because I really feel that all of us should have these kind of personal interests, and it gives you a lot of power. It gives you something to be excited about. And ultimately it's like your responsibility, right? Like, it is not the responsibility of the people around you to make you feel good. It is really your responsibility. And so, and with aging, it's like, the East Coast New Yorkers, like, it is what it is. So
Right.
Aging, it is what it is. So let's not spend a ton of time torturing ourselves every day, looking in the mirror going like, oh, this and that. It's like, it is what it is. So how can I make this, kind of the best experience with realistic expectations? And then also not letting ourselves off the hook, that we can still work really hard regardless of our age.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that you touched upon a little bit earlier that I really, really liked, I'm kind of farting around with a new book. It's sort of it's similar to the last one I wrote, but it's kind of really looking into a lot of the things that, exercise is obviously one of them. Eating properly is one. Maybe some mindfulness practice is obviously, whatever other little, additives you need to do. One of them is you talked about communing, like just being around the kind of people that just make you happy. You know what I mean? And being around the kind of people that make you think and maybe allow you to really be yourself more than you are with some other people. You know what I mean? And really keeping them tight. And a lot of times, you know, their lives are often very, very busy, but you know, always constantly reaching out to them and just spending as much time with folks as that as possible. And, you know, Sean and I just went to Europe, and, you know, it was all us, our friend Scott tagged along for part of it as well. And we both got home, and I'm a Cancer. I don't know what the heck that's supposed to mean, but I like my shell and I don't want to leave the house. I don't, you know, I got to drive to Malibu. That's scary. I don't know if I want to do that. You know what I mean? That's just kind of who I am. I mean, and then I always thrust myself into, you know, going to Kosovo and being on a military base where there was a war 2 years earlier, you know, that kind of, let me go do that. Or let me jump out of a Chinook, or let me, you know, throw up 7 times in an F-15C. I don't know. I go from one extreme to another, you know, but since I've been back, you know, I'm appreciating, you know, my wife's away helping her ex-mother-in-law who's broken her hip. And so I just decided to call some friends and come on over on a Sunday night and let's order some pizza and drink some fake beer and hang out. And I told Shauna that. She said, "Who are you? You had people over and I wasn't there to organize the damn thing." And I go, you know what? I just had so much fun just getting out of my comfort zone. You know, look, I don't speak Italian or French, but it was just fun for me to go there and do what I could do and be with her. And that's really helped me a lot, you know, lately. I hope I can keep that trend going. Does anybody have any questions before I go to my next one? Get off your hands, people. Uh-oh, what happened there? I touched something bad. Come back, everyone. Yeah.
I see a question from Dan.
Dan Barkey. Let's see, Dan. How would you describe your approach to achieving balance between your professional endeavors and your personal life as a partner? Great question, Dan. Mother and the pursuit of personal interests.
You know, I heard a concept, because before, I think the way I sort of went through my young adult life was thinking it was all buckets, like, okay, my relationship bucket, my work bucket, my training bucket, and all those buckets. And then I read a book, actually, and there was a gentleman who has a philosophy about a flywheel, where if you kind of really like your work and you know, have a physical practice and you're into the relationship you're into, that this flywheel, things feed everything and they feed each other. And I feel like that's more realistic, because there's going to be weeks that work feels more demanding, and there's weeks where there's more opportunity to be deeper into my relationship, or more time, or the kids need sort of more attention. But I don't know that I feel different than any other person, which is, you sort of feel behind most of the time. I feel like some days I'm not doing anything particularly well, you know, like you're getting it done.
Yeah.
And so I think I've done that long enough that I'm like, oh yeah, this is actually how it is. And the other side of that is this: I would like to be very good or excellent at all the things I'm trying to do. However, if you're trying to do all of these things, meaning work and build a real life and take care of yourself, then it's something gives. So for example, you'll see somebody who's a CEO or an entrepreneur and they are crushing it, or they're hyper fit, or maybe they're even those two things, but something's going to give. So is it your real life? Is it your relationships? Or people have really rich relationships, but their career is fine, but it's not like they're killing it, or their physical conditioning is good enough. So I think it's also being realistic that my physical health is the most important thing. Of course, I'm there to serve my family, but let's just say the things that I need to really pay attention to. And then my relationships. So it's also about your what's the priority. And so for me, it's my health, my relationships with the people in my life, and my work. And it's in that order for me at this time in my life. Everybody's different. If I was a 25-year-old male, it might be like work and my health, or vice versa, right? So I think it's being realistic and setting up the right kind of goals for the category that you're talking about. And then I think you can get pretty good at it. But yeah, I mean, I drop balls all the time, but it's sort of really understanding what's really going to make me happy. Is being more successful going to make me happy? Okay. Or is being more fit going to make me happy, or having a more, a deeper relationship with someone in my life going to make me happier? So I think that that's always the biggest question, is us knowing ourselves enough to go, what is it? Because I know a lot of really successful people that didn't build out a real life, and it is not pretty.
That's super interesting. Like, I'm thinking, the example I'm thinking of is, let's say any individual has 8, 9, 10, 12 pieces to their pie. Are you saying for them to truly be happy, for them to feel good, so they're under a lot less stress, just to kind of cut out some pieces and just, hey, maybe that's for the future, or maybe that was part of the past. It's just, I'm just not going to have the opportunity at this stage of my life to be able to deal with that right now, because I'm crushing it here, here, and here. But there's these 3 other things I really want to do. And it's either I'm half-assed, or I'm not putting enough attention to it, and it's creating too much stress because I don't have the energy for these 3, and I'm really after these 3. Is that
Yeah,
like, I do that? I have 20.
You spread yourself out.
I have 23 failed businesses. I think we talked about that in your podcast.
Sure.
Once I became known, everybody was knocking on my door, and I can't imagine how well my lawyer did during that time, but I certainly didn't do so well,
Well,
and
I think
I don't make that mistake as much, but
I think it's important to do what you want to do versus what you think you're supposed to do. And they're very different. And so if someone's knocking on your door going, you should start this business. Do you want to start the business? I've been an entrepreneur. I have failed businesses, but I also have pretty good businesses. But I want to do those businesses. I want to solve those problems. I didn't start them for an angle or for a return or a reason. I was like, okay, I think I could invest some time in this because I believe in this, because anything, like pretty much everything, takes work. So I think for me, that's it. It's knowing yourself enough in this moment, and maybe who you think you are, and also trying to become, and doing what you really want to be doing, not just what you think, well, this is the move.
This is the move to make money. I think I got caught up in trying to make a lot of bread. That was as opposed to, I wanted my own watch. I wanted my own insoles. I wanted my own mouth guard. I wanted my own clothing line. I wanted my own home delivery food service. Those are all things that I wanted. And those are all the things that were offered up, but whatever. Whatever. There were great lessons learned. It is what it is, but it is what it is. Exactly right. You're right about
what it is.
Well, Deborah wants to know, tell us a little bit more about the pool workout.
Do you want to hear it from me or from Tony?
I'd like to hear it from you.
Okay. No, I just want to honor if she wants to know your experience in the pool, or if she wants me to share what the pool workout is.
Deborah, did you want to hear my experience, or did you want to hear Gabby's explanation of what she put me through? Are you there? Are you there?
I'll just give you an overview then very quickly. So the XPT pool training was sort of created out of Laird's need to really want to be better in big waves. And he doesn't like to swim, as far as like the monotony of it. Swimming is very, as you know, difficult. And so we started messing around, I'd say it's almost 16 years now, where Laird and a group of us, Laird would go, try this and try that. And so before you know it, it's like deep water, 10, 12 foot, you're jumping with dumbbells so you can be ballistic, but you're not in gravity. So there's opportunities, and you can do hypoxic training. So doing sort of these horizontal cardio disciplines where you are getting more functional with less air. So there's a lot of components to it where you can improve performance and just simply not crush your body, which is so difficult to do, work that hard and not be sore in that way. But also the other part of it is you meet yourself in a different way. When you're in water, in an element with no air, there's a different kind of stress. And so what you're able to do is train the organism to, in really stressful situations, you still have to make good decisions. So what I say about the pool that's very interesting is it's not just physical training, it's actually training the organism itself. So for example, in meditation, they say, well, just notice your thoughts. And in the pool, for example, I can be doing a long hold. And if all of a sudden I think to myself, wow, I'm really feeling uncomfortable. And I know it's my CO2. It's not a lack of air yet. It's actually an intolerance to CO2. That if I spend a lot of time ruminating about how uncomfortable the CO2 is, now I'm burning more oxygen versus, oh, okay, this is what's happening. And I can't really afford to react to this because I'll give up too much air. If I have my eyes even open wider during pool training, I burn more air. If I hold my dumbbell tighter than I need to, I burn more air. If my jaw's flexed, I burn more air. So it's an environment that tells you the truth about everything, but it's objective.
Well, that's a much better job than I would have done. All I know is that Gabby handed me some weights, and I had to hold my breath while holding those weights much longer than I wanted to. And I was squeezing the crap out of the weight. I was clenching my jaw, and my mind was racing.
Yeah.
So day one, you know what I mean? I made all the mistakes, but that's probably why I want to go back, just to be able to sort of find some calm in the storm. You know what I mean? Which would help me because, you know, as I told Gabby, I think I was 7 years old, where the only reason why I'm here is because an Eagle Scout pulled me out of the water and pumped me.
I see a lot of tears during pool training. We just had an event last week, a 3-day event for XPT. I see a lot of tears because you'd be surprised how many people have had very, very traumatic experiences in water, whether it's the ocean or a pool. I have military guys that have aqua trauma from their training. So we see it all. And what I tell people, especially people that are not comfortable in the water, is really, it's the bravest thing you can do.
Yeah. Yeah. And you even told me some stories of professional athletes, football, basketball, baseball, who, you know, as good as they are, you know, a lot of them Hall of Famers, and a bit of a panic in that water. Yeah.
Well, if you're not exposed to water, if you don't have that it's like the way to use it. You know, I know when it's like, okay, water can be very soft. And then how do I use water to propel myself in a real way? And it's just kind of learning all of that. But it's a fascinating training, and it's really a fascinating thing to coach because you get to see people very quickly.
Oh, you're right out of the box, man. Yeah. You saw Brian, me, and Vache pretty quickly. Yeah. And in your podcast, I was able to, you know, maybe fool you once or twice, not in the pool. Let me see here. Let's see. Wow. I'm listening to you say this at 9 at night while I'm working to catch up on a project. I'm only slightly behind on major food thought. I don't know if there's a question in that. Oh, that's your answer. That's your response to her answer. Out of curiosity, what's your longest breath hold? Do you do that? Do you even?
I mean, that's actually an unrealistic. I mean, I could probably hold my breath if let's say I get rid of my CO2 and I oxygenate my system pretty good. I could sit at the bottom of my pool for 4 minutes or something. You know, that doesn't really count because the reality is
you're not exerting.
Right. So for Laird, let's use Laird as an example. If he's riding a wave and he's got an elevated heart rate and he wipes out, and now he's got to have a hold down, that 30 seconds might be incredibly different than, okay, I'm here, I'm zen, I'm holding my breath. So I think that's not a measure sometimes that's actually accurate. It's more about, if we're talking about just training now, your Bolt score, your tolerance to CO2. So for me, what I like about the pool is this idea of how efficient can I be with less oxygen, and how tolerant can I become of CO2, because now I'm more efficient. So I can absorb more oxygen because I have the presence of CO2 in my system, because you can't absorb it from your bloodstream into your tissues or cells without the presence of CO2. So that's why, for example, we don't want people mouth breathing here on land, because then they're not getting that CO2 level high enough in their system to really get the oxygen from the bloodstream. So that part interests me more than, let's say, holding my breath.
Right. Can I get back? I want to get back to the some other questions that have come up here earlier.
Yeah.
What kind of things other than the pool are you doing physically these days to support your body as you get older? And how much has that changed since when you were younger? Curious about that.
I do I created a high X. It's a HIIT training, 3-minute stations. I make anywhere from 12 to 18 stations. So I do that probably 2 to 3 times a week. I usually do that with a group of my friends. And it's more about like time under tension, trying to use gravity in my favor. So a little bit of jumping because it's important. Obviously weightlifting and things like that. And I did add, the weirdest thing that I've added probably as I've gotten older, it's not weird, but let's say the most different is I was getting help from Ben Patrick from Knees Over Toes. So for example, today I had a really busy day and I had no time to train. So I literally got up a little early this morning, walked for an hour backwards on my treadmill. So I would say walking backwards has made me feel really good, my hips and my knees especially. And then I sort of do, different types of exercises for dorsiflexion and some other things. But that's about all I have time for is a few days of pull training, a few days of HIIT training, some walking backwards. I have the other thing that I do maybe that seems kind of novel is I have a stand-up bike. So then rather than having a seat, I have, Laird has a stand-up, it's an elliptigo, but he doesn't ride the slider. He rides the mountain bike without a seat. And I like the slider because what I like about it personally, and I use it as a hill climb. This is not really for flat land training. I think that's kind of not really what it's for. I like going up the hill is, your glute and foot, like everything finishes behind you. And you're not in a shortened psoas position. So I love this idea of doing cardio in this extension, but again, avoiding that pounding.
So this HIIT training, is it 30 seconds on, 10 seconds off, bang, bang, bang? That kind
No off. It's 3 minutes at a station, 30. What I do is I write the workouts and I have an A and a B move. So let's say if we do cardio in the 30 seconds, the other 30 would be some kind of mobility or recovery. Or if it's a squat, it might be a kettlebell snap. Or if I pull you out of a cardio, I might put you on one leg. So you're fatigued and now you've got to work on one leg. And so it's 30s. I've tried it all the ways for me personally. And so you're at each station for 3 minutes. You have 6 mini sets within there. And then you've got, about 30 seconds to transition to the next. And you're just following a team in front of you. And then you know what you're doing next. I call the time. I give you a 1 minute cue, a last 30 cue and a switch, and then we're rolling.
Are you doing it with your friends the whole way? Or are you kind of more of a trainer at that point?
No. It's my training and I invite them to work with me. And so this actually got kind of fun because when I went to Kauai, they shut the gym there. So I would invite like a few of my girlfriends and I said, okay, you guys can train with me. And then because it's a small place, people would ask if they could join. And so for a lot of years, I taught the class to about 80 to 100 people for $1 so that they could be on my insurance. And I would put them on teams of 5 and 6. It was actually quite beautiful because I could put a group of really like beefcake, super fit, the workout's hard, beefcake men on one team. And then a team following them could be a team of like 7-year-old ladies. I'd have teenage girls. I'd have, you'd see it all. And so what I saw was a couple things: built-in accountability because people would show up for their teammates. If I knew they loved each other, I'd put them all on the same team all the time. And then you'd have like a 17-year-old girl looking across the room at a 70-year-old woman who was lifting more weights than them. And then so she got the idea like, oh, wait a second, that's actually what 70 can look like and looks like. And then what it does for the 7-year-old woman is like, hey, you know what? I'm doing pretty good. So I learned so much. I use it basically as a laboratory for a long time to create this curriculum. I even got, NASM. We did a certification with those guys.
Oh, wow.
And I found it as a thing to do. I always say if anyone talks in absolutes, they're out of their mind. There's not a thing to do. So it's a thing to do to kind of get it done. If you don't have a lot of time, you get bored or, you're like popcorn, you like to look around. There's no time for that.
Now, are you doing this by the pool or in your gym? I mean, how many people are coming to your?
Well, this in California, it's just a few of my friends, like 7 or 8. But when I go to Hawaii, actually, we're trying to create another public space so I can do that for the community. It's my community service there. And again, it just keeps me having to sharpen my blade. And this because you have this at your house where I just have to keep learning and paying attention and getting new input. So I call that just like, my podcast, I call all of it forced learning pretty much.
Yeah, it's interesting. I did some of that this past weekend. On Saturday was the Idea World Health and Wellness Conference that they have every year, either in San Diego, this was in LA. And I hadn't been since before the pandemic. So I bought my bought Brian, who you met at the house that day. And we ended up with so much stuff that we had never seen before. And a lot of it was developed by these young entrepreneurs. One was in Miami, one was in Detroit. Just these kids that were used to going to the gym, didn't have anything at home. One guy turned this cinder blocks into his workout and created these 15 to 55 pound simulated cinder blocks that I can't even begin to describe it, but it's beautifully made, well designed, so many ways to play with these silly things. And without the pandemic, it would have never happened. And these other kids, these three kids that were brothers out of Detroit, came up with these things called hero rollers that we used on Sunday, we used this morning, and they kicked our ass, these fun little toys, you know what I mean? And it's fun to be able to, we had so much stuff that we had to pull up to a loading dock to put it in my car at the end, because when I was there with continuous rope, have you seen that little toy? They're going to be dropping one of those off. Scott Morgan, get ready, buddy, at the house on Thursday or Friday. And then we got 2 free cold plunges out of the deal. It's pretty amazing.
Great.
Inspired by you. Thank you very much. So one for here and one for Jackson. But and it's I think that's what keeps me interested at this stage of my life. And I also think it keeps me from getting hurt or bored or plateauing. I mean, there's in some ways, because of adding all this new stuff in all the time, I'm just kind of freakishly strong and not broken. Because there's all that variety. We'll have to have you over for the Wednesday night 20 set hit plyo workout, which it's isometric, it's plyometric, and it's also cardiovascular, depending on which one of the moves are. I think you'd dig it.
Amazing.
What else from everybody here? Here we go. Talk about your approach to nutrition and supplementation as you enter into your 50s. So what are you, 33, 4 now?
Sure. No, I'm 53. So my food is really simple. I don't put a lot of stress around food. One thing I think in my personality that works in my favor is I've sort of taken the emotion out of, like, how do I feel? I've gotten over that a long time ago. Like I'll be honest, 50% of the time, I probably don't feel like working out. So, you sort of put your head down, and with food, it's just plants and animals. I eat high quality sourced animal protein, less of it than I used to, and plants, real food. I'm very mindful of what oils I use. If I want to eat chocolate, I will. There's nothing that I don't eat. I will eat gluten if I want to. It's not like a regular part of my my eating plan. And the thing for me is always taking away that I can't. It's just I don't, and that really is helpful to me. And every once in a while the reins get a little loose, and I kind of start to watch myself and go, oh, you're getting a little loose on your reins, and so I might pull it in a little tighter. I try to get enough protein, especially if we're talking about aging. They say for women, you certainly need more protein. As we get older, men need more fiber, just the way that it seems to show up. And then supplementation wise, I know this is the thing. It's like, I know all the things I should take, and sometimes it gets to be too much. So what I am attempting to take is magnesium, vitamin D, quercetin. I do take a multi-omegas. I will take things. I have also started to microdose occasionally. And I have really found a great result with that. I tend to be pretty linear. I didn't drink alcohol as an adult. I grew up in the Caribbean and everyone was really drinking a ton. So as a kid, I was like, oh, I don't think that works. So I guess when I shared that I microdose, I started about a year ago. I'm not, the only drug I've ever tried is weed. I'm not a particularly like, I want to lose control and be out of my mind, but I did start to notice that, I don't know, that my head was setting up like cement. There was too much information, too many details, too much. And so I had really done a lot of research on it, and I really have felt very good. I could go from there to be interviewed at the IRS or drive one of my daughters to school. Like, you're not stony.
Yeah.
It just, there's a homeostasis. And I also feel like I have access to my brain a little better. So I will say that that has been something that's been very, very positive for me. But I do try to get my supplements in and then cycle them in and out. And, you know, I think also what we're learning for women too is iodine is also important. I know it's kind of strange. So the omegas, the D, the quercetin, the magnesium, the zinc, and multi, and then obviously sometimes I take some novel things here and there, like NAD or something like that.
Iodine. What's the value for women with iodine?
Apparently we're just very low, and it's something that's very, very beneficial for our hormones, as well as like if you wanted to, do ashwagandha or maca or things like that. I do incorporate those things usually in like smoothies or things like that. And so I'm sort of very consistent, not obsessive. And if I forget one day or I just don't, it's totally okay.
I love the fact that you just took the stress out of the eating thing. I think, everybody goes through one stage or another, and it's all or nothing. And then of course it doesn't end up working because it's too restrictive, and, they're obsessing about other things and whatever, which I love. I think I'm actually in a very similar place to you. I tried veganism twice. I failed miserably. I think maybe it had I don't know if it contributed to my Ramsay-Hunt syndrome, but I was vegan when I just wasn't getting enough protein. And at that time I was under a lot of stress that I wasn't dealing with. And then now, I'm still veganishy, but we're in Jackson Hole and there's elk medallions.
Yeah.
I'm going to eat the damn elk medallions. Wild salmon, I'm going to eat the salmon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, what, dude, you're not going to finish those French fries? And when you help you eat those French fries.
Yeah.
It's like, it just feels like, and then dark chocolate, 5 nights a week, little, like that little guy, put it in there. I don't chew it. I just, yum, 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 you know what I mean? And it seems to work. I'm in a really good place. I'm strong. I'm pain-free. I sleep like a baby, and so, it sounds like we're in a similar place. Micro dosing, is it like ayahuasca? Is it mushrooms?
It's mushrooms, psilocybin, and it's measured. It's not like, oh, whoops. It's
are you guided, or is this just your thing, your way?
Oh yeah, no, I did homework. I wasn't being cavalier about this at all. Right. And I get it from a company that they tell you exactly how much is in every single pill. So it would be conversely like when edibles became more kind of medicinal and measured, not like, oh, right, you got the brownie with a lot in it. No, it's not like that at all.
You're not doing the
no. So I really and again, the only reason I gave the backstory about my kind of overall attitude about drugs is I'm not really a person who's like, oh yeah, I did that and I went to Burning Man. That's not really me. But this, after I read Michael Pollan's book and just doing a little more homework, I've really gotten a lot of positive results from it. And again, maybe your vision might be a little kind of heightened, but you could do it at 6:30 in the morning and get in your vehicle and drive wherever. You'd be completely responsible. So that's why I share it, because I feel really good about it.
Yeah, that's an area that I have not ventured yet. I mean, weed we always were high in college, what I mean, when I first came out to California.
Yeah.
Along with other things that were also very illegal.
I never even really went down that path. I mean,
I was a teenager.
Yeah, of course.
I was in my 20s and I was in LA, and it was the 80s. It was just, I believe it was mandatory at that time.
Yes.
So, totally. But then I started going to the gym. I'm drinking a lot of beer. I'm smoking weed, and I'm going to the gym. These two, like, there was a day for me 30 years ago where somebody offered me a drink, and I turned to one and I said, I think I'm done with that.
Yeah.
I haven't had I'll have actually, Sean and I in London, I had half a beer. It was
crazy.
Yeah. Well, I was in London and it was some kind of fancy lager or something. So I had to try
for sure. And that's the thing, is not putting, restrictions around things. But, I will say, having done this podcast, what does come up over and over and over and over is that, and nobody likes to hear it, it's not popular, but alcohol is it's not great.
Yeah. You're hearing it over and over again. Yeah, I think
It's not great for you. It's not great for your microbiome. It's just, it's, you know, it's not
it
great
ages
for
your
you.
skin, it makes you look like crap earlier than you
Yeah.
should. It's just, it's basically poison. It's like you're drinking poison every day.
Yeah, it's ethanol. So, but I've gone to so many things where people will do a whole talk and they're like, I can feel they're with me, you know, and then at the end they're like, oh, do you drink? And I'm like, actually, I don't. And it's not because I was like, it's not good for me. I just didn't drink. And then we could talk about the data about what's not good about it. And you can just see everyone be like, oh,
I know. Wah, wah.
yeah,
No fun. Yeah, I
yeah,
just need to relax. Or I just love the taste of wine. And you know what I mean?
yeah.
I'm a
Hmm.
connoisseur of these beers. And
Yeah.
maybe all that's true and it's all great, but are you living your best life? I don't know.
Yeah. Or this goes back to, what do you want? And what's important? And that's all. It's just taking full ownership of it, but don't have one side of your mouth saying, I want to do this, and start talking to me about grams of micronutrients. And then over here, you're drinking whatever. It's like, okay, okay, give me a break. So I think it's just about that. What do you want?
Right. So here's one from Laurel. I don't know if we've covered this or not, but I'll read it anyway. What are your guidelines for protein for women over 50? Is it based on a percentage of calories or something else? And why is it more important as women age? Great question, actually, Laurel. Thank you for that one.
I don't know that it's more important than when we age. I think it's just that it seems that maybe we eat less of it. So I think that that's why they hammer that down. But also, as your hormones change, I believe that protein's probably your friend, if we're going to put things on our plate. So maybe it's a kind of a combination. What I have heard many times, if you are interested, Dr. Stacy Sims, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, they're both very good. Yeah. And so it's a gram of protein per your ideal body weight. So let's say somebody weighs 130, but they prefer to weigh 122, then it's 122. But it's hard to do. So again, you can't have stress around it. I told Tony right now I weigh 180 pounds. I'm not eating 180 grams of protein. And then they sort of say, oh, and by the way, only do 35 at a sitting ish. So it gets a little tricky. So you just, again, go back to, I understand where I'm trying to go. I do the best I can. Sometimes I supplement. I will have a smoothie and stuff because I'm trying really hard to keep it to like real food as much as I can. And if I fall short, I fall short, but at least I'm aiming somewhere.
Yeah. When you said in your email 180 pounds, I was like, oh, I forgot that she's 6'3".
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah. That's interesting. And the only thing I would add to that, Laurel, is I mean, there's a lot of studies on sarcopenia and what's happening with people as they age, and muscle loss, and it's just much harder for folks as we age, both men and women, but especially it's hard for women to build muscle, period, especially if you're if you're an ectomorph or whatever. And so it is that HMB and vitamin D3 that we just mega dose in my protein powders that, I don't know, they seem to be having some kind of an effect so far. Look at that. The ego and the insecurity came together in that moment. Here's a great question, Scott Morgan. I love this question, dude. What is your philosophy on scheduling rest week to week?
I am so far past scheduling rest. I don't schedule my off days. This is what I do. How do I feel? I'm good. I can work today. Or today's shot. I'm going to be sitting at a desk all day or in an airplane. Okay, it's a rest day. What I will say to people is, if you like to schedule your rest day, what I really appreciate is proactively participating then in the recovery. So doing heat, doing some kind of cold, doing some kind of breathing exercise, stretching, kind of mobilizing tissue. So it's not just like, hey, I'm on the couch, rest day. Right. What I think is also so important is to support and sort of encourage recovery during those days. But I really want to encourage people that if Sunday is your rest day, but you feel kick ass, do it. And then if Wednesday is like supposed to be some hard, whatever, I'm going to be traditional leg workout or some weird thing circuit, but you feel like crap for real, then there it is. And it's so important for people to be tuned in to themselves.
That is brilliant. that's gold. That advice is gold. Last night was a cardio session, and we had a couple new folks there. And not that I'm ever in a situation where no, that's not true. I was probably saying I'm not trying to impress people. I forgot who I was. But they were there, and whatever. There was 9 of us. There were 8 of us, which normally there's 8 stations on cardio night. And so I had to add one, which was this plyo box thing. It was more like a HIIT thing than a cardio thing for 3 minutes at a pop. And at one point, normally it's an hour and 5 minutes, depending on how fast or slow our transitions are from thing to thing. And at about the 40-minute mark, I turned to the group and the new guys and went, "Hey, I'm done. I am done. I don't know why I'm done, but everything hurts everywhere." And I know why everything hurt everywhere, because of the 2 days before. But anyways, cardio was scheduled and everybody was coming over, and there's a couple of new guys. And did my ego get in the way? I'm not in that situation. I just said, "Hey, you guys, keep going." And I just kind of stretched, and I broke out the foam roller, and everybody else finished it up. So
because you don't want to get injured, and your body's communicating to you, and as you know, you can end up creating greater gains by taking the rest when you need it. And so if you want to, I always tell people when they train with them, I'm like, I don't need a one-day hero. I'm here for the long run. So we've got nothing to prove to anyone. We just really owe it to ourselves to tune in to what am I feeling? How am I feeling?
Here's a question for you.
Okay.
Motivation is always the number one question for me. Tony, how do you stay motivated? And I have my standard, do these 7 things. If these 7 things are in play, and I honestly believe and I have faith in these 7 things, then, and like you said, you've got your days where you just, I'm going to take today off, or days where you're going to kick ass because you have the energy to do it. But a lot of people are just so inconsistent. They don't, I think a lot of the reasons why are pretty terrible. They're doing it for, ego or aesthetics, or for somebody else because their husband or spouse wants them to look a different way. And it's just a miserable journey for them. But like for you, for example, how do you stay motivated in general? I mean, I would think that your answer is, I've been doing this forever, and anything other than this just feels horrible. But do you have days where, you have the energy, but you just say, F it, or do you have your 7 things or 2 things or 3 things that are just locked in? This is who I am. This is what I got to do. There's no reason for me to miss workouts ever. Or what is your plan there?
I've shared this a little before. I don't know that I'm so organized in my list of things. I have been injured many times as an athlete, and I'm really good at learning from things. And so one thing I don't need to learn is that my health is valuable. I understand that on a cellular level. I feel it. I know it. And on the days that I don't feel like doing it, it's still not in conflict with what I know to be true. And so if something is sort of a universal truth, I have a tendency to be like, that's what I'm doing. And
right.
And it's even listen, I'll be honest, it's even about being nice or whatever that means, or being kind. I don't know that I'm naturally I'm empathetic, but I just know that, it's just better. And I don't need to keep relearning that lesson from day to day. It's just that's how we're doing it. And so when it comes to training, the fact that I even have the luxury to have the time to have a moment to exercise and to consider that, shame on me if I didn't take care of that opportunity and do that.
I love that you just touched upon the importance of being nice as opposed to the antithesis of that. I think for me, I, especially because life is busy and life is complicated and I got all these balls in the air. And so sometimes I'm not as nice as I could be or should be. And I'm not mean or short with people necessarily because it's something they've done. I'm just being, excuse my French, I'm just being a dick in the moment.
Mhm.
I know how that doesn't help me at all. I find I'll be around with some people and Sean will be next to me and I'll get into something and I'll feel that stomp on my foot under the table and I'll go, oh. And then she'll whisper in my ear later, I madly love that really nice version of you as opposed to that dicky one that you get to be
Mhm.
sometimes. But that energy, the difference between those two energies, just as far as your productivity and your patience and the quality of your sleep and everything else, a 15-day trip to Europe helps every once in a while, or jetting off to Jackson Hole, those things too. But I think the mindfulness and the breathing, if I'm not naturally, people would I have to put on a bit of an act sometimes. I have to sort of go, okay, I'm not in the mood for this. I don't want to do that. I feel like being sort of a curmudgeon right now, but that doesn't serve me.
Yeah.
And
I think
take it
most
till you
people
make it kind of thing.
I think a lot of people feel that way. I think it's in our nature, and it's our responsibility to be mature enough to get a hold of ourselves and realize it's not someone else's problem. And so then on the occasions like in work or even in a personal relationship that we have to be brutally honest or direct, it's still coming from a place that is not a reaction, but it's like actual communication.
Very nice. It's 6:35. We try to keep this to an hour. I know you've got some things and places to go. How about one more question? You got time for one more?
I'm here to I always do things the whole entire way, whatever that is.
All right, midnight. Let's go, people. Now, you mentioned the benefits of microdosing psilocybin. Do you mind sharing what benefits you have experienced?
Yes, if I could overly simplify it, a sense of homeostasis that I can arrive at very easily for me. And on a tangible kind of level, for example, if I'm doing a recording of an intro for my podcast, it usually takes me 2 or 3 times. I have noticed that when I microdose, it usually takes 1 time. And also if the day is incredibly full with a lot of things, it's almost like being able to slow everything down and just like respond and react to one thing at a time versus feeling the wave of the day kind of crashing on me. So that's why I use the word homeostasis, because I just feel like my brain is softer. I have more access to it. I can slow things down, and it's really also helps me to concentrate. I did my genetic testing and it said that I do not have a procrastination gene, but that I can be distracted. So that's sort of an interesting thing. And the other side of that is I have my DNA done, and I'm old enough now to see where I've also used lifestyle to bypass my using my epigenetics. So I want to just say that too, because I'm supposed to be a binge eater and some other things, and none of those things have shown up in my adult life. So that's clearly a sign of using lifestyle to kind of override and hit those other levers in our genetics. But I think the microdosing is very interesting. And I would think, and I'm not a doctor, that if maybe people get really kind of overwhelmed, that it would be maybe something interesting to explore.
How long have you been microdosing now?
It's been about a year.
About a year.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a daily thing like supplements?
No. No, it's
random based on kind of, I got this tomorrow, I better get up at 6 o'clock and do it.
It can be. And like I said, there's no after. You don't take it and then be like, it's going to hit you in 15 minutes. There's none of that.
Right.
It's just business as usual. Maybe two times,
but with more business as usual, but with more clarity, maybe.
Yeah. And for me personally, my thing has been I can focus pretty well, but I can focus better, but it's not so forced. And my sense, my internal climate is just feels more righted. My wingtips feel level, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm wondering, somebody like me who deals with,
you could definitely benefit.
The little we spent some time, you believe that's true?
Oh my gosh. Oh yeah.
Tell me why. let's make it about me now for the next 3
Absolutely. This should be about you the whole time.
No, man.
Maybe the chatter, this
that's the first.
chatter.
There's a lot of that. Yeah.
And
Well,
also,
what are you applauding, Dan?
oh, well, he's good to go. That's why. Don't mess with Dan, bro. He's in a black room too, on top of it. So that's
in the black room with white curtains.
No, just
yeah,
we all have that. It's just different volumes.
Sure.
I'm not beating. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a person who beats myself up. I'm not. It doesn't mean I'm not tough on myself, and I don't hold myself to be accountable, but I'm not just hammering myself all the time. I'm just not like that. So when you have somebody who maybe has a different expectation of themselves, or the internal voice is loud, like, oh, can you do it? I don't think you can do it. And are you good enough? And you're not good enough. I don't really have that. I have other things, but not that. So maybe it would be nice on the brain if it would just be like, oh, wow, look at it. It's cool out. A pretty blue sky, or whatever, that would just get us a little more level.
It's funny. I call that perfect moments, where you're completely present. And it wasn't like you scheduled it through a meditation or some sensation that you're feeling after a workout. All of a sudden you're just in the backyard and the breeze hits you in the face. Yeah. And then 3 of these crazy yellow birds land on the pool, and you go, and your dog's on your lap, and you go, oh, you have a moment to go, shit. How did this happen? Like, how am I'm so, or when Scott and I are in Jackson Hole and we're snow up to our necks, and we didn't know it was going to be that spectacular. And we're just all smiles and screaming and yelling and going to the chairlift going, can you believe where we are and what's going on? But
flow also. I think there could be an element, and maybe that is, you're saying it in a much better way than I did, which is it might be, there's an element of that flow.
Yeah. Well, I think I mentioned this in the podcast. When I was a kid, having, speech impediment, moved a bunch and got beat up and not athletic. I mean, it was this 24/7. Sure. Even when I wasn't sleeping, eating, sleeping, brushing my teeth, it was always like this. But with time and personal development and a certain amount of success and learning how to relax after you had Ramsay-Hunt syndrome, it's been mitigated to a large degree, but it kicked in before I had to go to North Dakota. You know what I mean? Yeah.
But that's also one of your superpowers, right? So it's about loving those parts of ourselves and saying, hey, how do I not let this, kind of torch the house and stay as a superpower? Yeah,
right on. Good stuff. I see 1 or 2 more questions, and then let's make sure. I'll read something twice. Who wrote? It was a Don Chatton flashback with specific mushroom product. That's a thing for me. What specific mushroom product do you use from Dan?
Yes,
Farmer?
There's a company called Rex Good, REX. And I believe you can, and this is what it gets funny, is you can find them on Signal. Because it's, it is what it is, right? If we were in Oregon, but REX Good, I believe, is let me just double check. And what I do like is it's completely measured. So there's no surprises, and that's the brand. And I have also I have friends, or it's REC, Rec Goods. I have gotten also, I have friends in Oregon who have a license to grow mushrooms, and then I have used that. But it's not that I prefer the Rec Good, but it's the same every time.
Yeah. Like back in the day when we were smoking weed, it was not the same every time, man.
Yeah. And I've never been.
Dude, we're laughing. Oh, I'm on the way to the ER.
Yeah, no. And I've never personally been on any type, and I have nothing against it. I'm actually, fascinated by a psychedelic journey of any type. I've never done that.
Interesting. Will there ever be another season of XPT on the Outdoors channel again?
Oh, I don't know. I doubt it. Who knows? I mean, maybe there will be, but since there's a strike, they need content. So you never know.
Yeah, it would be great. The world would love that. All right, here's my last question for you, and then if there's anything else, then we'll be done. But
Okay.
any super cool tips or secrets you want to share when it comes, anything else maybe that you haven't covered yet? Like one or two, maybe most people don't know. Microdosing has certainly been one of them in our conversation today. Anything else with nutrition or recovery or sleep, or what kind of bamboo pillowcases? What do you got?
Well, my husband sleeps with a chili pad and chili blanket. So he's in a cold burrito, and he seems to really think that, he really loves this. So if you are a hot sleeper or woken up in the middle of the night, I know that is very supportive of sleep. I do have a friend, and I wish I could remember the peptide, that has been taking a peptide for sleep, and he says it's unbelievable. I will find that out to you, Tony, and you can put it in the notes. It's
Okay,
it's EBP something. Listen, this is not a secret, but this is something that certainly can help with your waistline or your sleep. Is if you can really back off your last meal of the day, if you can win your first and last meal of the day. So without getting too technical, cortisol, as you know, is higher in the morning. And so really good protein and good fat at that time is great. You want to eat those carbohydrates. Actually, weirdly, I know everyone goes, oh, I'm going to bed. At the last meal, that is when you benefit the most from them. So your sweet potatoes and such, I'm not necessarily saying your bowls of pasta and, loaves of bread, but you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So, and that to back that meal off at least, and this is hard, I know, 3 hours before you go to bed, because what happens, and if you want to talk about, especially for women, you have an elevated body temperature when you eat, and a lot of times you get glucose spikes, and that will really be disruptive to your sleep. So when we're talking about aging, and for women especially, the more we can do this, we can sort of win in a different way. Again, it's hard to do. It doesn't mean when you go on vacation to Europe that you worry about it, but that the more we can be 3 or 4 hours from bedtime from our last meal, and being really diligent on our first and last meal, there's a lot of benefits.
Okay, here's my last question. Because you just sparked.
And one more thing. Everybody's using glucose monitors, which is excellent to know what spikes you, but that actually is not a reflection of what's going on with your insulin. And so people have to be mindful of, because your glucose could actually be regulated and your insulin is not. So if we're talking about one of the core elements or tentacles of good health, it's maintaining insulin sensitivity. And so I would just be mindful to people. There's a test, and forgive me, I've had a long day, but Ben Bikman, Bikman. There is a test that he talks about that you can get it measured. You can ask for, it's like $20. And it would really be worth knowing, because people think, oh, now that I have my glucose monitor, I know what's up. And you might know what foods spike it and you don't come back from as quickly, but it doesn't mean you're totally dialed into understanding what's happening with your insulin. So I would say that would be really important.
So here is I swear to God, last question. Based on your recommended eating habits, so fasting is not something that you do or have ever done or have a...
Oh yeah, I have, of course, because like everyone, and I understand why, but all studies were done on men. And what you're finding, especially performance women, were better fed, not fasted. But if you figure, I don't really eat from 7 p.m., 7:30 p.m. until at least noon the next day, because
then that's fat.
it's a form of it. I do coffee with lots of fats in the morning, but and then let's say I know I've kind of a really radical training, or I might have like a couple boiled eggs right after. However, I do not actively fast, because besides wanting to stay married, I have learned that overall it's not great. I will also use fasting as a form of discipline. If I'm really getting wild with my food, I might be like, because then you're happy, right, to eat a salad after you fasted. So I might use that to kind of get on top of things.
Very good. Very good. Gabby, thank you.
Of course. Thank you, Tony. I really appreciate you. And I appreciate what you do for people and your willingness to not only share what you know, but also share just your own journey. And I only want people to feel as good as they possibly can, because I'm living in this world with you. And so I would like you to feel good. So when we run into each other, we're like, oh, good afternoon. How are you?
And let's jump in the pool or in the hot box. By the way, I'm rearranging my entire patio based on having that one day at your house. I want you to know that.
Okay.
Yeah, the electrician's putting in plugs everywhere. So
I bet.
I have what I want. Let's all turn our mutes off and say goodbye to Gabby. And you guys, I'll stick around with everybody for about 10 minutes if you still want to stick around with me for a bit. But again, Gabby Reece, everybody. So
aloha, everyone. Thank you. Aloha.
Thank you very much. This was awesome.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye, Tony.
bye.
Bye.
You know, I'm glad that you've really enjoyed this interview. I can tell because you're watching it, because I can see you. Anyway, since you're here, I know you're really going to fall madly in love with this next one. I mean, I'm talking about knowledge consumed by you. All you got to do is go right over there